Venezuela's Attorney General reveals new details linking opposition figure Juan Guaido to drug trafficking networks. Ousted Tunisian President Ben Ali dies in Saudi Arabia. North Bermuda takes a lashing from Category 3 Hurricane Humberto. Hello and welcome to Telesur. I'm Carla Gonzalez in Quito and this is from the South. Venezuela's Attorney General Tarek William Saab gave an update on the current investigation against the opposition member Juan Guaido and his alleged links to drug trafficking networks. He said new photos had come out that prove such a connection.
First, we want to salute the signing of the agreement between the government and parts of the opposition and denounce things that media has tried to cover. The fact that one of the witnesses of Juan Guaido's illegal entrance to Colombia was sought and someone tried to kill him. Since they couldn't find him, they killed his family. We are investigating the close and organic relations between Juan Guaido and this narco-paramilitary group. Media try to undermine photo evidence that some have called uncomfortable. It is not uncomfortable. They are scandalous, disgusting.
And another opposition party has joined the dialogue table established by the Venezuelan government and representatives of small opposition parties. Evangelical pastor Javier Bertucci, leader of the Hope for Change party and former presidential candidate, joined Vice President Delcy Rodriguez and other authorities to sign the agreements first announced on Monday. Bertucci, who ran against President Maduro in the 2018 elections, took third place, receiving 10.8% of the vote. Bertucci also made a call to all opposition parties to join the dialogue, saying the government had shown willingness to find solutions for the benefits of all, for all of the citizens, and that everyone should come together to find a way forward.
We must provide solutions for the Venezuelan people who are living, in my opinion, one of the worst times in their history. It's urgent. For that reason, we cannot continue postponing or showing attitudes of pride or hubris. Here, no pride should reign over the needs of the people. And I'll be clear, politics should not have power as its objective. Politics should have as objective service to the people. Following this line, we must all work. We cannot just substitute whichever initiative. I am one who thinks that the dialogue initiative with Norway should continue and allow that this dialogue also proceed in a parallel fashion. At the end of the day, we are in search for solutions and results.
Former Tunisian President Zine El Abidine Ben Ali, who was ousted during the 2011 Arab Spring, has died at the age of 83. Ben Ali died in exile in Saudi Arabia just days after Tunisia held a free presidential election. He fled from his country in 2011 as citizens rose up against his rule in a revolution that inspired other Arab Spring uprisings abroad. In 2011, a Tunisian court sentenced Ali in absentia to 35 years in prison on charges ranging from corruption to torture. And in 2012, a military court sentenced him to another 20 years for inciting murder and looting. Hurricane Humberto lashed Bermuda with strong winds Wednesday evening as the powerful Category 3 storm skirted just north of the islands. While Bermuda avoided a direct hit, the storm unleashed rain and fierce winds of up to 193 kilometers per hour, while it also pounded seas. Humberto's hurricane-strength winds packed quite a punch, snapping trees in half of the island. The local electricity company says close to 28,000 customers, 80% of the territory, were left in the dark in the wake of the storm. All schools and government offices will remain closed throughout Thursday. Officials aren't reporting any deaths from the storm. Meanwhile, Bermuda's famous causeway, the strip of land and bridges connecting the main island to St. David's Island, suffered storm damage and remains closed at this time. The Emergency Management Organization is asking the public to avoid using the roadway, which is now being inspected by engineers. As Humberto hit on Wednesday evening, Bermuda's National Security Minister provided an update.
The winds are still very high, so encouraging everyone to remain indoors. We've just spoken to officials from Belco. They have indicated that approximately 28,000 people are without power. Tomorrow morning at approximately 7:30, we will be giving an update to share with you how Bermuda fared during the storm. I would like to thank all of our first responders and all of the people that have worked in calm ops overnight for their hard work.
As Humberto moved past Bermuda, the island's premier David Burt has expressed relief that no lives were lost as a result of the storm. In a statement issued on Thursday morning, Burt says, "We've made it through and everyone is safe," adding that that's what is most important. The premier also informed that cleanup has begun so the island can return to normal operations. The Atlantic hurricane season, which runs through November 30th, has ramped up in recent weeks. Hurricane Dorian devastated the Bahamas, killing at least 52 people, with hundreds more still unaccounted for. So to tell us more about what's happening on the ground in Bermuda, we're now joined live by journalist Don Burgess in the capital, Hamilton. He's the Bermuda Media Council's executive officer. Hello, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me on your TV program today.
So can you tell us more about the impact of Humberto on the islands? Where has it had more effect and to what extent are we talking?
Well, just to start off with, the causeway is now open. It opened up at noon Bermuda time, and the airport is now open, accepting flights. They did an assessment, an underwater assessment, to make sure that it was safe for vehicles to travel on, and so that's open. The power company, Belco, has restored power to 5,000 customers already, so taking a good chunk that were without power, they're putting back on. So the part of the island that received the most damage was along the north shore, mainly because that's where we were getting the winds as Humberto passed to our northwest, and there were quite a few roofs in the crawl area of Hamilton Parish that lost little bits and pieces of it. It wasn't like a whole roof that was taken off, but a little bit. Several of the hotels aren't taking any guests today, just because they're trying to fix and clean up. So the Southampton Fairmont Princess is one, and the Hamilton Princess is another. The Inverlory Hotel in Paget also had a little bit of roof damage. There was one person on a boat who was rescued. There were 17 hurricane-related fires and 3 structural fires that the Bermuda Fire and Rescue Service attended to help put out. So overall, we were pretty lucky not to receive extensive damage. So a lot of things are going to return to normal tomorrow. They've been asking people just to stay off the road so they can quickly restore power to the rest of those that are without. Schools will still be closed tomorrow, but the government offices will be open.
And can you tell us more about the emergency services over there? Are there any reports of injuries or dead people throughout the island?
Well, there were no fatalities. Part of the emergency services, there were 8 women who were pregnant and could have given birth, so they were at the hospital ahead of time, and one of them actually gave birth during the hurricane, so we had a hurricane baby. There were some minor injuries. There's a clinic on the island of St. David's, and they had 3 people show up with some minor injuries, and the fires and rescue service also helped some people that had some minor injuries, but it didn't seem like anything major.
Thank you very much.
As far as the cleanup goes, the government, the regiment, the Bermuda Army's out helping clear the roads along with a couple of different government departments. So there's not really any of the major roads closed anymore. So everything seems to be open.
Thank you very much, Don, for your time, and please take care.
All right, thank you very much.
Don Burgess from Bermuda speaking on Hurricane Humberto. And after this break, Argentina approves a food emergency bill after months of protests. Don't go away. Police in Honduras have attacked environmental activists who are protesting against the construction of a luxury housing project inside a national park. Police fired tear gas on the protesters who had assembled in El Hatillo, north of the capital, Tegucigalpa. The protesters have been demonstrating since last week and say the construction project located in the Tigra National Park will have a negative impact on the environment. They have vowed to continue with their protests until the project is cancelled. They also accuse the government of harassing them.
He already knows me, and there are death threats. Therefore, we're going to denounce violence before human rights organizations because I've already identified the individual who threatened me. I'm very sorry, but I already have 2 police officers denounced in court and will go for the 3rd court case.
Mexico will open a new investigation into the disappearances of 43 students in Ayotzinapa back in 2014. The Attorney General's office said it would reinvestigate almost from scratch what happened to the 43 after they clashed with local police 5 years ago.
In yet another bid to uncover the truth, the parents of disappeared meet with the public prosecutor in the National Palace.
We came out peacefully. We gave all the relevant documents we have to the new prosecutor in charge of the case. We have been given a commitment that we would meet in 2 months' time, and I think the Attorney General's office has expressed willingness, as has the President, who was with us.
Ahead of that meeting, the families complained of the slow pace of investigation carried out by the previous prosecutor, who they say failed to cooperate sufficiently with the Presidential Commission for and access to justice.
Unfortunately, we are confronted with the same issues. While the Commission is willing to investigate, there are still no results. We get desperate sometimes. We've been seeking answers for 5 years.
Special Prosecutor Omar Gómez Trejo has assured that a new investigation will be launched. He says it's to ensure that the individuals responsible for the students' disappearance do not walk free.
We are immediately scrutinizing all the information that has come to hand. We believe the evidence we have would be of value to the courts. We are going to hand over all the evidence, and from there on, they will proceed accordingly.
Meanwhile, President Andrés Manuel López Obrador has asked anyone with information concerning the students' whereabouts to contact the authorities. You can help because this is an open wound. This has to do with justice. It has to do with humanity. Right now, families, colleagues, and social organizations are preparing to take part in mass protests in the state of Guerrero and the capital, planning for the end of the month. They will do so under the rallying call for the truth, justice, and punishment for those responsible.
Argentina's Senate has approved a food emergency law that will increase state funds to fight hunger and improve nutrition as the country deals with inflation and increased poverty. The measure allocates a 50% boost in the current budget for national public food and nutrition policies. The Senate's approval comes after the lower house overwhelmingly voted in favor of the measure on September 12. It was proposed by opposition lawmakers, including those from the party of Alberto Fernández, the presidential frontrunner in the upcoming elections. Several protests have been staged over the past months against austerity measures introduced by President Mauricio Macri. This was in order to comply with the terms of an IMF bailout. In Brazil, the General Prosecutor Raquel Dodge has asked the Supreme Court of Justice to start a new investigation into the murder of Rio Councilwoman Marielle Franco. Dodge says that the initial investigation was marred by outside interference in order to divert any probes into those who were behind the assassination. She added that these unknown players manipulated the justice system with the help of a retired councilman, 2 police officers, and a lawyer. Under these accusations, the prosecutor's office has requested that the investigation be removed from a state court and be handed over to a federal court. Marielle Franco was an outspoken activist for the rights of women and Afro-Brazilians. She was killed along with her driver, Anderson Gomez, in March 2018 in Rio de Janeiro. Former FARC combatants held a fashion show in Bogotá to promote peace and reconciliation in Colombia. Models took to the catwalk to display pieces made in collaboration between ex-combatants and victims. The aim of the show was to convey a message of their commitment to reconciliation and peace. The ex-combatants said they will continue to pursue peace despite the Colombian government's failure to honor the 2016 peace agreement that sought to end the decades-long war.
We want to tell Colombians, these are the garments the men and women are making for peace, that we left the guns and said no to war, and we want to continue on that path. This is very rewarding, and also to see all the people who came.
Today, I just realized that we are not alone. There are many people who continue betting on the peace process, and hopefully, together, we can build the peace that Colombia has longed for many years.
A top Central African Republic football chief and a militiaman have appeared at the International Criminal Court to confirm charges of war crimes and crimes against humanity. Head of CAR Football Association, Patrice Edouard Ngaisona, was a senior leader of mainly Christian militias, while Alfred Yekatom commanded thousands of the so-called anti-Balaka fighters on the ground in the country's war from 2013 to 2014. Prosecutors accuse both men of criminal implication in a campaign of violence and terror against civilians, including children. Judges will decide whether there is enough evidence to move to a full trial. The government of Nigeria has continued repatriating its citizens from South Africa following a spate of xenophobic violence that left 12 people dead and dozens injured. On Wednesday, more than 100 returnees arrived in the commercial capital Lagos from South Africa aboard a private charter aircraft. Nigerian citizens were some of the worst affected migrants in the latest wave of xenophobic attacks, which started in the city of Pretoria before spreading to Johannesburg and other parts of the country.
It affected us because for the business, nothing is going on, nothing is moving, everything is static, nothing is going on. Even the kids, they are staying, even they told my kids by the school that they are coming to ban them by the school, but from there, my kids, she's scared to go to school. So I decided, no, it's better we come back to our home.
I don't think I was able to go back to South Africa because if you are walking the streets, you are not safe. You understand? So those people that are still angry but are safe. So the most, what surprised me a lot, when they're breaking the shop, governments don't even care. They don't even bring a police to come and help the situation. So I don't think I can be able to return back to South Africa.
Young climate activists are speaking out across Africa as well. 15-year-old Ugandan Lian Namugerwa has talked in the Rwandan capital Kigali, calling for action to save the planet.
Young people are busy fixing a mess that they did not create. Young people from Kampala to New York, Cape Town to New York are raising up for the climate crisis.
Coming up, violence is back in the streets of Afghanistan after the U.S. abandons peace talks with the Taliban. Stay with us.
Our actions have an impact on the environment. It's our responsibility to change for the sake of our planet. Let's be part of this transition. Watch, preserve, and protect your Green Zone. Wednesdays, only on Telesur.
A Japanese court has cleared 3 former Tokyo Electric Power executives of negligence regarding the Fukushima nuclear plant disaster. In 2011, a magnitude 9.0 earthquake triggered a massive tsunami that devastated the Fukushima plant, causing 3 of its 6 reactors to melt down and release radiation. Prosecutors had accused the 3 bosses of failing to act on information that showed the risks to the plant from a major tsunami. But the executives argued that although they knew, they were not responsible for day-to-day operations. This is the only criminal case to arise out of the world's worst nuclear crisis since Chernobyl in 1986. The ruling angered protesters outside the court, many of them survivors of this disaster.
How could the court rule this way? We cannot understand and cannot accept it. For the past 8.5 years, there are so many people who were forced to evacuate their homes, hometowns, and they're still looking for a place to live.
U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has claimed Washington has proof that attacks on Saudi oil installations originated in Iran, despite the fact that Houthi rebels in Yemen claim responsibility. During an impromptu visit to Saudi Arabia, Pompeo added that the U.S. wants to build a coalition of European and Arab partners against Iran. Earlier, Pompeo said that the drone attacks on 2 Saudi oil fields on Saturday was an act of war against the kingdom. However, Iran has strongly denied any involvement in the attacks.
Okay, thank you. So coming to the mouth.
And in response to Pompeo's statement, Iran's Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif said in a tweet that he warned of an agitation for war as he referred to the war in Yemen, saying that the U.S. is still paying for it because they were too arrogant to end it 4 years ago. Yemen's Houthi fighters are warning that they will launch attacks on the United Arab Emirates if it continues to participate in the Saudi-led military campaign in their country. A spokesperson for the Houthi movement said they have already identified several targets for drone attacks in the cities of Dubai and Doha. He advised UAE to pull its troops out of Yemen if it wants peace to prevail in its country. The fighting in Yemen between the Saudi-led coalition and Houthi fighters has killed more than 50,000 people and left more than 22 million on the verge of starvation.
To the Emirate regime, we say that just one operation will cost you a lot. You regret it if your leadership decides to issue instruction to its armed forces to launch any response in the coming days or weeks. We announce for the first time that we have dozens of targets in the UAE, among them Abu Dhabi and Dubai, and that they can be targeted at any moment. If you want peace and security for your facilities and towers made of glass that cannot withstand one drone.
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has rejected the formation of any government which would include Arab parties. His comments come a day after he fell short of securing a majority in parliamentary elections. With more than 95% of ballots counted, Netanyahu's right-wing Likud party has so far won 32 seats in the Knesset, while Benny Gantz's blue and white party takes 33 seats. In a sign of the demanding negotiations to come, Netanyahu is reportedly planning on canceling a trip next week to the UN General Assembly due to the political context in Israel.
There are only 2 options, either a government I run or a dangerous government that is based on Arab parties. And during these times, more than ever, especially in front of the big political and security challenges that we face, there must not be a government based on Arab anti-Zionist parties.
Lev Greenberg from the Department of Sociology and Anthropology at Ben-Gurion University spoke to Telesur about the Israeli elections results.
As a matter of fact, what we must understand now is that it's almost the same situation than before. We have 2 blocs that are unable to form a coalition, and mainly they can block each other, but not more than that. The only party that is not positioning itself here or there is the party of the Russian voters, led by Lieberman. And he was the person that brought about these elections because he didn't want to join Netanyahu, despite the fact that he was part of his coalition in the past. Now he's demanding the formation of what he calls a national secular unity government. That means he's trying to force Netanyahu and the Benny Gantz, the 2 big parties, to form a coalition with his party, and to exclude both the religious parties and, for sure, the Arab parties. this is the situation now, and Netanyahu is doing everything he can do in order to prevent his indictment. This is his problem, because at the moment he's not a prime minister. He will be probably indicted.
At least 12 people were injured after a suicide bomber attacked a government building in eastern Afghanistan on Wednesday. The bomb is reported to have detonated when security forces engaged in gunfire exchange with alleged fighters who tried to storm a government building in Jalalabad. About 200 people who were in the building have been evacuated, and so far, no group has claimed responsibility of the attack. And with that, we end our news brief, but you can find all of our stories by checking our website, telesurenglish.net. And for our viewers in Africa, you can find us on Starsat, channel 461 in South Africa and 539 in Nigeria. And be sure to join us on social media as well. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.